Hello, this is Joyful Hermit, and I've just sort of been cleaning up the hermitage some. I've invited an African priest for dinner tomorrow night, and it's a good motivating factor. Also, very, very tired from pain. Pain is exhausting, any of you who know. So I take little breaks from my straightening and ironing or whatever other little things I need to do. But I wanted to have a kind of a video answer or correspondence with Anthony, a hermit in Omaha who has had private consecration, private vows as a hermit received by a priest since July of 2000, and I have had my private vows consecrated as a hermit received by a priest since December 29th of 2000. Um, he is now discerning whether he wants to um, apply, and I think he's going to, ask his bishop for canonical approval. And in that process, he's been doing a lot of studying and writing up a plan of life. There are two types of hermits within the Catholic Church. One is the canonically approved hermit, consecrated. The other is a privately approved hermit, consecrated. The canonical hermit is in keeping with Canon Law 603, and the vows are received by the bishop, and that hermit then is more under the direct jurisdiction of that diocese. The hermit vocation is a vocation, and a vocation means a call. So I received a call, Anthony received a call, and a couple of times I have cast the nets in the water as far as canonical approval. One time my bishop said yes, he was going to do that, but then he got very, very busy in the process of his retirement and said he needed to do more research and needed to take more time. I considered that an answer, meaning the net came up with no fish that time. I'm very content with not being a canonical hermit under the jurisdiction of the diocese in a more formal way. However, now and then, when we have a new bishop or whatever, I consider applying because that's a means for me to discern God's will. There's very little difference other than more in temporal concern and canon law concern, church legalities. This is what the Code of Canon Law from 1983 says regarding hermits as being part of the consecrated life, meaning on equal basis or similar basis as consecrated religious or consecrated virgins. Besides institutes of consecrated life, the Church recognizes the life of hermits or anchorites, in which Christ's faithful withdraw further from the world and devote their lives to the praise of God and the salvation of the world, through the silence of solitude and through constant prayer and penance. The second section is identical in many ways to one of the two sections found in the Catechism of the Catholic Church under consecrated life and the Hermetic vocation. Hermits are recognized by law as dictated to God in consecrated life if, in the hands of the diocesan bishop, they publicly profess by a vow of some other sacred bond the three evangelical counsels, and those are chastity, poverty, and obedience, and then lead their particular form of life under the guidance of the diocesan bishop. Most often the bishop allows the hermit spiritual director to be the authority over the hermit and the hermit's plan of life. The Catechism of the Catholic Church also adds, hermits manifest to everyone the interior aspect of the mystery of the Church, that is, personal intimacy with Christ. Hidden from the eyes of men, the life of the hermit is a silent preaching of the Lord to whom he has surrendered his life simply because he, the Lord, is everything to him. Here is a particular call to find in the desert, in the thick of spiritual battle, the glory of the crucified one. I obviously am exploring the ramifications or the extent of hidden from the eyes of men. Hermits who wear habits are hardly hidden from the eyes of men. Right now, I am hardly hidden from the eyes of men because if someone sees this video, they see me. Now, they don't know who I am other than the rather innocuous Joyful Hermit moniker, but nonetheless, my face is shown. And I think in our time period, hidden from the eyes of men has to be interpreted depending upon the hermit's circumstances. As someone who suffers all the time, and as someone who is single and older and lives in a subdivision and goes to a parish, I am not hidden from the eyes of men. However, my vocation is for the most part hidden. My life of prayer is for the most part hidden. My daily routine consists of getting up, going to Mass, possibly if I need to run an errand on the way back, and come back to my hermitage, which is an ordinary small subdivision house. And no one in my neighborhood has any idea. God has so arranged it that actually I'm very isolated from my neighbors in a social sense. And my adult children know, none of them live in this area. A few family members, but they're mostly Protestant. I don't think they comprehend hermit life. There are many stereotypes. I wrote this in addition to my bishop. I have researched for now 13 years the eremitic life in the church. I have numerous, some scarce, topical books, including biographies of holy hermits and the evolving tradition. Other than the above citations, consecrated life is regulated under Canons 573 to 746. I mention here also that the early prophets, many of them in the Old Testament were hermits. John the Baptist was a hermit. We have the tradition of the desert mothers and fathers who were hermits. And now we have canonical inclusion, church law inclusion of consecrated hermits and virgins. And part of the reason that canon laws are created is for the very same reason that in the temporal secular world we have laws constantly being created, and that's because we human beings tend to abuse and do things wrong at times, which requires laws to guide and consequences. So some, probably in the past, maybe some people who were not of sound basis, perhaps ill in some way or off kilter in mental ways, decided that they were going to become hermits. Or maybe even well-intentioned people felt the call to be a hermit, or people who were isolated types, nonconformists, and to an extreme, or what's the word I'm looking for? Introverts, recluses, and they decided they would be hermits in the Catholic Church and then they, in a way, would seem to represent, and maybe they were not very good representatives because perhaps they didn't have a vocation or a call at all. But through some morbidity or some mental problem, they were doing this. So abuses always, whether in the secular world or in the world of the temporal church, need to have boundaries placed upon certain actions. Thus, canon laws and canon laws for hermits. And then in my letter, I mention various components based upon my reading and my living the life now for over 11 years as privately consecrated and avowed, the following elements seem basic to a consecrated hermit: to live alone, or if ill, have a caretaker. Prove financial and physical autonomy. Be private, simple, hidden, yet live among people in liturgy and God-willed hermit hospitality. Hermits are very hospitable people, historically. Work and pray. Hermits are not antisocial people. People do come to them as God wills. They live by a rule of life, are accountable to the bishop or religious superior, but the bishop usually places them under the direction of their confessor or director. Hermits may even be married, but if so, the spouse must agree to hermit celibacy and separation, such as with St. Nicholas of Flue. Now, in our time period, there are examples of married hermits who do not live separately, but live in a state of chastity. Rites of profession of vows are a medieval development, but usually include Mass, vows with the three evangelical councils to the bishop, who blesses and receives the hermit for Christ and the Church. A small sign may be included, such as a ring, or, for me, the crucifix that I wear that has rings on it that were my mother's, and an old priest wed me to the cross because of my suffering. Vows are public, professed to and received by the bishop, but need not be publicized. That is a key consideration. A simple and private service or private consecration seems to me most in keeping with the vocation. However, others have chosen to videotape and put their services, their masses, and their consecration on YouTube video, or have them available, or invite, many people or an entire parish to witness. So, and it's all a matter of what the hermit and the spiritual director decide might be best for whatever circumstances. Perhaps some parish needs the example or the notice or understanding of a hermit and what the hermit vocation is, and thus the hermit decides it should be a very public affair as far as the actual ceremony. Others, no. Actually making one's hermit life public can open up to a great deal of judging, because, as we know, many people have a stereotypical view of a hermit living in a tree or in a cave with unkempt hair and barely any clothes on, and sort of batty, perhaps, so, and antisocial, a definite recluse. So, and those are incorrect stereotypes. Simple and private profession seems to me most in keeping with the vocation. As I said, the important abiding aspect is the actual challenge of hermit life, the perfecting of living out the vows for the remainder of one's earthly life. So that's a little bit about the hermit life. And Anthony, I'm praying for you, for whatever God wills for you regarding your upcoming approach to your bishop to be canonically approved or not. And I know that you know, and I know, it's all the Lord's decision as to what He wills for individual hermits. God bless His real presence in you.